I'm Mary, and looking back now, I can see how each cruel word and dismissive gesture shaped me, though not in the way my sister intended. Growing up, my older sister Claire was everything I wasn't: athletic, popular, and most importantly in our household, thin. While she captained the cheerleading squad and collected admirers, I collected cruel nicknames and sideways glances. The worst part? The tormentor-in-chief lived right across the hall from me. Every morning, I'd wake up dreading another day of her calculated jabs and subtle humiliations. "God, Mary, do you have to breathe so loudly?" Claire would snap at me during breakfast, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against her bowl of carefully measured cereal. "Maybe if you moved more than just your jaw, you wouldn't sound like a steam engine." Our parents sat at the same table, absorbed in their morning routines, pretending not to hear. Mom would just stir her coffee a little more vigorously, while Dad buried himself deeper in his newspaper. The kitchen would fill with an uncomfortable silence, broken only by the clink of spoons and the rustle of pages. "Mom, did you hear what she said?" I'd protest, fighting back tears, my toast turning to cardboard in my mouth. "Oh honey, you're being too sensitive, Claire's just trying to motivate you," Mom would reply, not even looking up from her coffee. "She wants what's best for you. You know how much she cares about health and fitness." Claire would smirk behind her glass of orange juice, knowing she'd won another round. She always won at home, where our parents treated her words like gospel and my pain like an overreaction. The worst moments were when Claire brought her athlete friends home. They'd gather in our living room, all lean muscles and matching uniforms, looking at me like I was some exotic creature in a zoo. Their laughter would echo through the house, each giggle a needle under my skin. At school, it was even worse. Claire would walk right past me in the hallways, pretending we weren't related. If we accidentally made eye contact, she'd quickly turn away, as if the mere sight of me might tarnish her perfect reputation. If anyone asked, she'd say, "Oh, that Mary?" No, different Mary. Definitely not my sister. Each denial felt like a knife in my heart, but I learned to wear a mask of indifference. I tried telling our parents about how Claire treated me at school, showing them texts from friends who witnessed her behavior, but they'd always dismiss it. "You must be imagining things," they'd say, shaking their heads. "Claire would never do that. She's such a good girl, always looking out for others." But she did, every single day, and their denial only made the pain cut deeper. High school brought unexpected changes. Maybe it was the stress of Claire's constant torment, or perhaps just genetics finally working in my favor, but my body began to transform. The baby fat melted away, and suddenly I could fit into the same size clothes as my sister. You'd think this would have made things better, but Claire just found new ways to tear me down. "Don't get too excited," she'd sneer, eyeing me up and down in the hallway between classes. "It won't last. You'll blow up like a balloon the minute you stop watching what you eat. It's in your genes, remember Aunt Martha?" I remember the day I wore a new dress to school, feeling confident for the first time in years. The blue fabric hugged my new curves perfectly, and for once, I didn't feel like the ugly duckling. But Claire couldn't let me have even this small victory. She cornered me in the bathroom between classes, her cheerleader friends forming a barrier by the door. "Who are you trying to fool?" she hissed, her perfectly glossed lips curling into a sneer. "You'll always be the fat sister. It's who you are inside, this." She gestured at my dress. "This is just temporary. Give it a few months, and you'll be back to your old self." But I wasn't that scared little girl anymore. Something in me had changed along with my body. I stood straighter, met her gaze directly. "Is that what you're afraid of, Claire? That people might actually see me now? That you won't be the only one getting attention?" She stormed out, but I saw something new in her eyes: uncertainty. The power dynamic was shifting, even if she didn't want to admit it. Her friends followed her, but I noticed a few of them giving me appraising looks. For the first time, they saw me as a person, not just Claire's embarrassing sister. Life moved forward. Claire graduated college first, naturally, and married quickly, as if it were another competition she had to win. She found a husband who matched her perfect exterior, and their wedding was exactly what you'd expect, a showcase of her athletic figure in a designer dress, with all her cheerleader friends as bridesmaids. I focused on my studies instead of rushing to the altar. In my final year of college, I met Tom in an advanced economics class. He was different from the guys Claire always dated, thoughtful, kind, and completely uninterested in maintaining a perfect image. He fell in love with who I was, not what the scale said, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly accepted. We married right after graduation in a smaller but much warmer ceremony than Claire's. Soon after, I got pregnant, and the joy of expecting our first child overshadowed everything else, even Claire's renewed attacks about my weight gain during pregnancy. "Be careful," she'd warn at family gatherings, her voice carrying across the room. "Pregnancy weight is the hardest to lose. You don't want to end up buying all new clothes, do you?" The years following my pregnancy were supposed to be the happiest of my life. Tom and I had a beautiful baby boy, Jake, and I was finally finding my footing as a new mother. But Claire, ever vigilant in her role as my personal tormentor, couldn't let me enjoy this peace. My postpartum body became her new favorite target. "Oh my God, Mary," she'd say at family gatherings, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You really need to do something about all that baby weight. You're turning into a behemoth." She'd follow these comments with a laugh, as if cruelty wrapped in humor somehow made it acceptable. I tried to avoid her as much as possible, but family obligations made that difficult. Every holiday, every family dinner became an exercise in endurance. Claire would circle me like a shark, waiting for the perfect moment to strike with another cutting remark about my figure. Then came my birthday. I didn't want to invite Claire, but my parents insisted. "She's your sister," Mom said, her voice carrying that familiar note of disappointment. "Family is family." If only they knew how prophetic those words would become. The party started well enough. Our house filled with friends and family, the air warm with conversation and laughter. I should have known Claire wouldn't let me have even one day of peace. She arrived fashionably late, carrying a large, elaborately wrapped box with a smirk that made my stomach clench. "Present time," she announced, thrusting her gift into my hands. "Open mine first, Mary, I put so much thought into it." The room grew quiet as I unwrapped the box. Inside was a year-long membership to an expensive fitness club. Before I could even process this latest humiliation, Claire was already performing for her audience. "I just couldn't think of anything else you needed more," she declared, her voice ringing with false concern. "You know, they have great programs for people trying to lose significant weight. The trainers are used to working with, well, special cases." My cheeks burned as I felt everyone's eyes on me. Some guests looked away uncomfortably, others tried to hide their reactions behind their drinks. But Claire wasn't done. She spent the entire party following me around, dispensing unwanted advice about weight loss. "You know, they just released this amazing collection of oversized clothes," she said loudly as I tried to serve cake to my guests. "I immediately thought of you. The cuts are so forgiving." I retreated to the kitchen, but she followed. "Don't worry about the cake, sis. What's another slice when you've already got 20 pounds to lose, right?" Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. The tears I'd been holding back all evening broke free, and I fled to my bedroom, Claire's voice floating behind me. "Must be those postpartum hormones. They're especially bad when you're carrying extra weight." I might have continued enduring Claire's torment indefinitely if fate hadn't intervened. 2 months after my disastrous birthday party, my phone lit up with a message from Sarah, an old college friend who worked at the Grand Plaza Hotel downtown. "Mary, I think you need to see something," the message read, followed by several photos that made my heart stop. There was Claire, my perfect, judgmental sister, wrapped in the arms of a man who definitely wasn't her husband. They were kissing in the hotel lobby, completely lost in each other. "She's been coming here at least once a week for months," Sarah explained when I called her. "Always with the same guy. I wasn't sure if I should tell you, but after hearing how she treated you at your birthday." I sat on this information for days, turning it over in my mind. Part of me wanted to expose Claire immediately, to watch her perfect life crumble like she'd tried to crumble my confidence so many times. But I needed to see it for myself. The following Tuesday, I took a personal day from work and stationed myself in the hotel lobby, hidden behind a large decorative plant. Sure enough, at exactly 2 p.m., Claire walked in, wearing a dress that would have earned me a lecture about dressing appropriately for your body type. Her lover arrived 5 minutes later. They didn't even try to be discreet, falling into each other's arms right there in the lobby. I watched as they kissed, my sister's wedding ring glinting under the chandelier lights. That's when Claire saw me. Her face went from passion to panic in an instant, color draining from her cheeks. She quickly disentangled herself from her lover and hurried over to where I stood. "Mary, please," she whispered, her usual confidence replaced by desperation. "This isn't what it looks like, it was just one time, a mistake. Please don't tell Richard." I almost laughed at the absurdity. "One time? Sarah's been watching you two for months, weekly meetings, Claire. Did you really think nobody would notice?" "I'll end it," she promised, gripping my arm. "It's over, I swear, just, please keep this between us. You know how people talk." For the first time in our lives, Claire was at my mercy. The power shift was dizzying. But I surprised myself with my response. "I'm not going to tell anyone," I said, watching relief flood her face. "It's not my business what you do with your life. Deal with your husband yourself." As I walked away, I heard her call after me, "I knew you'd understand, sis. You're not as bad as I thought." For a while, things settled into an uneasy peace. Claire's awareness of my knowledge seemed to temper her public attacks, though she couldn't completely resist making snide comments when we were alone. It was like watching a caged tiger, still dangerous, but contained. At least, that's what I thought until the day of Aunt Patricia's party. Our extended family had gathered at Aunt Patricia's sprawling Victorian house for her annual summer celebration. The afternoon sun filtered through the old oak trees, casting dappled shadows across the lawn where relatives mingled, drinking lemonade and sharing gossip. I was helping arrange desserts on the patio table when Claire made her grand entrance. She practically floated across the lawn, one hand resting deliberately on her stomach. I knew that look, she was about to put on a show, and somehow, I knew I wouldn't like my role in it. "Everyone, I have wonderful news," Claire announced, her voice carrying across the garden. All conversation stopped as our relatives turned to her. "Richard and I are expecting." The reaction was immediate. Relatives swarmed around her, offering congratulations and hugs. Our mother burst into tears of joy, while Dad beamed with pride. I hung back, watching the scene unfold, but Claire wasn't done with her performance. "Mom, Dad," she said, her voice thick with artificial sweetness. "Since I'm going to have a baby now, I've been thinking about family and the future." She paused dramatically, making sure she had everyone's attention. "You know that money you promised Mary for Jake's education? I really think it would be better spent on my child's future." The words hit me like a physical blow. That $100,000 had been promised to us months ago, specifically because Jake was their first grandchild. We'd already started planning his education around it. Our parents, predictably, fell right into line. "Claire's right," Mom said, not even looking at me. "This would be best for everyone." "We can't play favorites," Dad added, as if that's not exactly what they were doing. "Mary, you and Tom are young, you can save up yourselves." I felt the familiar anger rising, but this time it was different. This wasn't about my weight or my appearance, this was about my child's future. "This isn't fair," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "You made a promise. Jake is your grandchild too." "Mary," Mom sighed, using that patronizing tone I'd heard all my life. "You need to think about what's best for the family." "Which family?" I shot back. "Because it seems like Claire's family is the only one that matters to you." I left the party early, driving home with Tom in silence. That evening, as we put Jake to bed, I made a decision. I need to tell you something, I said to Tom, leading him to our living room. It's about Claire. As I revealed everything about the affair, Tom listened without interrupting. When I finished, he simply asked, "What do you want to do?" I said slowly, "It's time Claire learned about consequences. Planning revenge requires patience." Claire's birthday was approaching, and for the first time in my life, I looked forward to giving her a gift. I spent weeks preparing it, making sure every detail was perfect. The envelope I chose was beautiful, cream-colored with gold trim, exactly the kind of thing Claire would appreciate. Inside, I arranged the photos Sarah had sent me chronologically, each one showing Claire and her lover in various compromising positions around the hotel. Under these, I placed a glossy brochure from a DNA testing clinic and their business card. The party was held at Claire and Richard's house, a showcase home in an expensive neighborhood that they'd bought with help from our parents, of course. I arrived fashionably late, just as Claire always did at my events. Finally decided to join us, Claire called out as I entered, her perfect hostess smile firmly in place. "I was beginning to think you'd gotten lost. Though with your sense of direction." She let the implied insult hang in the air. I smiled back, patting my handbag where the envelope waited. "I wouldn't miss this for the world, Claire, especially giving you your gift." The evening progressed with the usual parade of expensive wines and carefully curated hors d'oeuvres. Claire held court among her friends, occasionally shooting smug looks my way. When it came time for presents, she saved mine for last. "Well, Mary," she said, picking up my envelope with exaggerated care. "Is this going to be something useful this year? Not like that scented candle from last Christmas?" "Oh, I think you'll find it very useful," I replied, watching Richard move closer to see what his wife had received. "It's something that might really change your life." Claire rolled her eyes and tore open the envelope. The photos spilled out into her lap, and for a moment, she just stared at them, her face frozen in a rictus of horror. Richard, standing behind her, reached down and picked up one of the pictures. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice cutting through the party chatter. "Claire, what the hell is this?" "It's not what it looks like," Claire shrieked, scrambling to gather the photos. "It's fake, Mary must have photoshopped these. She's always been jealous of me." "There's video too," I said calmly, pulling out my phone. "Would you like to see it, Richard?" "This is all lies," Claire was practically hysterical now. "You can't believe any of this." I picked up the DNA testing clinic's brochure that had fallen to the floor. "Well, there's an easy way to prove it, isn't there? Especially with the baby coming. I'm sure Richard would love to confirm he's the father." The party devolved into chaos. Our parents rushed to Claire's defense, calling me cruel and vindictive. Claire's friends whispered and recorded everything on their phones, no doubt already planning how to spread the gossip. Richard stood in the middle of it all, still holding the photo, his face growing darker by the second. "How could you do this to me?" Claire screamed, mascara running down her face. "At my birthday party? In front of everyone?" I gathered my things calmly, ready to leave. "Think of it as motivation," I said, echoing her words from all those years ago. "Isn't that what sisters are for?" As I walked out, I heard Richard say, "I want that DNA test, Claire, tomorrow." I drove home in silence, feeling neither triumph nor guilt. It wasn't happiness I felt, but something closer to peace. For the first time in my life, I had stopped being Claire's victim. The scales had finally balanced. News travels fast in small circles, and the aftermath of Claire's birthday party spread like wildfire through our social network. I heard the developments through Aunt Patricia, who had always been the family's most reliable source of information. She called me one morning while I was getting Jake ready for daycare. "You won't believe what's happened," she said, her voice thrumming with barely contained excitement. "Richard did the DNA test, the baby isn't his." I sat down at my kitchen table, letting this information sink in. "What happened?" "He's filed for divorce," Aunt Patricia continued. "And he's not playing nice. His lawyers are going after everything, the house, the cars, even her precious designer wardrobe." He's arguing that her infidelity violated their prenup. The details kept coming. Claire had moved back in with our parents, her perfect life crumbling around her. She'd lost not just her marriage, but her social standing as well. It turned out the man from the hotel wasn't her only indiscretion, she'd been having affairs with several of her friends' husbands. The country club crowd has completely frozen her out, Aunt Patricia said with a hint of satisfaction. Did you know she was sleeping with Jennifer's husband too? And Sarah's? The whole group has imploded. I listened to all this with mixed emotions. Part of me felt a grim satisfaction, but another part remembered the little girl who used to share my room before she became obsessed with perfection and control. Then came the call from Mom. Her voice was tight with anger and disappointment. Are you happy now? She demanded. You've destroyed your sister's life. I didn't destroy anything, I replied calmly. Claire made her own choices. We raised you better than this, Mom continued. To be so vindictive, so cruel. I did the right thing not giving you that money for Jake. You've shown your true colors. The old Mary might have crumbled under these words, might have accepted the blame and begged for forgiveness. But I wasn't that person anymore. No, Mom, I said firmly. You raised Claire to think she could do whatever she wanted without consequences. You taught her that hurting me was acceptable. You showed her that your love was conditional on appearance and social status. And now you're surprised that she turned out this way? I don't want to hear from you again, Mom declared. You're no longer welcome in this family. I took a deep breath. That's fine, Mom. You made your choice years ago. You just never had to admit it until now. Months passed, and life settled into a new rhythm. Tom got a promotion at work, Jake started kindergarten, and I focused on my own health and happiness without the constant shadow of Claire's judgment. We heard through the family grapevine that Claire had given birth to her baby, a little girl, and was still living with our parents, unemployed and largely isolated. But the story wasn't quite finished. Aunt Patricia called one morning with news that made me laugh out loud. Remember Claire's lover from the hotel? The one in the photos, she asked. Well, he finally did a DNA test too. The baby isn't his either. The irony was almost too perfect. Claire, who had spent her life judging others and crafting a perfect image, couldn't even tell who had fathered her child. I heard she was trying to figure out which of her various affairs had resulted in her pregnancy, but most of the men wanted nothing to do with her. Her former friends, the ones whose husbands she'd betrayed, had closed ranks against her. The perfect, popular cheerleader had become a cautionary tale. Tom found me in our garden one evening, thinking about all of this. Any regrets? He asked, wrapping his arms around me. I watched Jake playing with his toys on our lawn, his laughter carrying across the yard. No, I replied honestly, I just feel free. And I did. Free from Claire's constant criticism, free from our parents' conditional love, free from the weight of other people's expectations. I had my own family now, one built on love and acceptance rather than appearance and social status. I still struggle with my weight sometimes, but I do it on my own terms. I exercise because it makes me feel good, not because someone's shaming me into it. I eat healthy because I want to, not because I'm afraid of someone's judgment. Tom supports me in everything, and Jake is growing up in a home where love doesn't come with conditions. The other day, I was cleaning out some old boxes and found a photo of Claire and me as children, before everything went wrong. We were both smiling, arms around each other, no hint of the pain and betrayal to come. I thought about keeping it, but in the end, I let it go. Just like I'd let go of the need for my sister's approval, my parents' acceptance, and the weight of their expectations. Claire would have to live with the consequences of her choices, just as I had lived with the consequences of her cruelty for all those years. As for me, I'm focusing on writing a different story for my own family. One where worth isn't measured by a scale, where love isn't conditional, and where the truth, however uncomfortable, is always better than a perfect lie. The last I heard, Claire was still trying to rebuild her life, still living with our parents, still struggling to find her way. Sometimes I wonder if she ever thinks about the way she treated me, if she ever regrets the years of torment she put me through. But honestly, it doesn't matter anymore.